Project.
Our own planet is only a tiny part of the vast cosmic tapestry, a starry fabric of worlds yet untold.
For the next 90 minutes, your mind shall become engaged with minds that are very much like your own. Join Paul Kegel, Sushi, and Springwolf as they discuss various topics and people that we all have questions about. You're taking part in the Enigma Project.
Hello, everyone. I can't even talk now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Enigma Project. My name is Paul Kegel, and tonight we will be talking about synesthesia and playing Truth or Tale. But first, I would like to introduce my cohorts in this madness, Springwolf,
Jello,
and Sushi.
Hi there.
How are you guys doing?
okay.
Doing well.
Cute.
Listening to hammering, so if you hear anything, sorry, I've got a roofer on my house.
Isn't that song a country song? I got a roofer,
on my house.
And my dog ran away in my truck.
Because I got a leaky roof and I had to replace it.
Yeah, we've already started. Sorry about that. Welcome to the Enigma Project.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Also babysitting or bird sitting, so you might hear squawks. I'm very sorry.
I heard the bird more than I heard the roofer, so.
Okay.
I heard the bird and nothing from the roofers.
Good.
There you go.
Maybe you should put the bird out with the roofer.
You think?
Anyway.
No, I think the bird in the background would be nice and calming, relaxing, make you feel like you're out in the jungle forest. Maybe not.
Right. Because a jungle forest is where you want to do the Enigma Project from. There'd be a tiger sneaking up behind you and eating you.
Okay, if you're not in the chat room, you really need to get there because Evil just seems to be like he's you know.
He's in rare form.
He's in rare form. That's a good one.
I don't know if it's rare, but he's in form.
Yeah.
So
I like doing the river dance to make your phone do something instead of just pushing a button.
yeah, there you go. Before we get this madness started, too late. I want to remind everyone to check out our website at enigmaproject.com. You can see the shows that we have coming up. You can subscribe to the calendar of shows coming up. You can send us questions or comments from there. You can also send us questions or comments to Paul at enigmaproject.com or call the hotline at 423-521-2930 and check out Spring's blog at springwolf.net, and please help spread the word about the show. If you missed last week's show, we did the Man in the Moon, Other Planetary Faces, and Pareidolia. And that was a very interesting topic, and I enjoyed that quite a bit because we deal with Pareidolia quite a bit. And if you're not familiar with that, go back and listen to that show. You can find it on iTunes and Stitcher and our website. So, but that one turned out really well. Our next week's topic is going to be astral projection, out-of-body, and near-death experiences. And the week after that is going to be Monday, July the 4th, and there will be no show that Monday. So next week is going to be astral projection, out-of-body, and near-death experiences, and that's a topic I'm really looking forward to. If you are listening to this right now and you want to join the chat room, then go to enigmaproject.com/listen-live, and you can join us in the chat room and share your questions or comments. And Enigma is AENIGMA. And project is spelled normally. You're welcome. So, yeah. So, synesthesia is something, I don't remember where I saw this. It was probably on Facebook or something like that. Someone had put something on there, I don't remember. And I think we did a Truth or Tale based on it too, back many moons ago. Honestly, don't remember. But it was something that I wanted to talk about because it kind of fascinates me. But if you're not familiar with it, synesthesia is a neurological phenomenon in which stimulation of one sensory or cognitive pathway leads to automatic involuntary experiences in a second sensory or cognitive pathway. People who report a lifelong history of such experiences are known as synesthetes. It makes it sound like they're kind of special, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's basically where people can hear a sound, and when they hear it, they will see a color. They will physically see a color, or a colored shape like an orange triangle when they hear a trumpet playing, or something like that. And this just fascinates me. I mean, could you imagine having that sort of, well, I guess, Spring, you can kind of relate to this, seeing spirits, but having that sort of sensory experience and then realizing that no one around you does, that you're one of the few?
You know, when I was doing the research for this, I was reading some of the things about what these people do and how they see, and I was wondering if I've ever had the experience. And the only thing I could come close to is when I first started meditating and talking to, you know, the spirit guides or whoever was trying to talk back to me. I'd ask a question and they would show me some kind of a symbol that would try to answer what I was asking. You know, sometimes it would be a letter, sometimes it would be a symbol, and I remember seeing them in color, but it never dawned on me that that could mean something or be a perception. And then I was reading more about this stuff, and it talks about how people do this when they're in an alpha state, you know, not a theta state like you would go if you were in meditation. So I don't think I've ever done this before, but boy, it would be cool to do it, just to see what it was like.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
Sushi, have you ever had this experience?
No, I've never had this kind of experience. Of course, have heard of it, and you know, and it's not just limited to seeing colors. It's like there are also people who will taste something that they see. Like I see a stop sign, I taste French fries. I see a broom, I taste waffles. You
would be hungry all the freaking time.
All the time. Could you imagine? So, and
it's interesting how they associate some of these things with other things that you wouldn't, you know, like if you would see the color of coffee, coffee with cream, you'd think they'd taste coffee with cream, but that's not what these people. No, it's something totally different, and sometimes it's awful.
Can you imagine, like, every time you saw something common like coffee, you tasted poop?
Yeah, that's
exactly.
That'd be a good way to lose weight.
Just reading through the wiki, they give a nice example of how we all have a form of this synesthesia. Like, think about you have a physical reaction when you hear a noise, say like fingernails down a chalkboard.
Oh yeah.
You know, you get a physical reaction, and you know your nervous system goes gah.
Yep.
when you hear it, or you know, or whatever noise, makes you get the creepies.
Right.
So it's in that respect, it's very common to have one sense react with simultaneously with another sense.
Right, and it's interesting because it can be sight with taste, or sound with sight, but it's a connection between several different senses, and synesthetes, I always say it wrong, synesthetes, I think is how it's pronounced, but synesthetes have an odd connection between their senses where they not only see, hear, taste a thing, but they also have another sense that goes along with it. And I think that's fascinating. I was looking at the history of it, and it looks like the first medical description of a colored hearing is in 1812, German thesis by the German physician Sachs, the father of psychophysics, Gustav Fechner reported the first empirical survey of colored letter photisms, and the colored letter thing is called grapheme color synesthesia, and it's where synesthetes see a number, and for them there's an inherent color with it. Like, they'll see the number 1 and they see it as red. They see the number 2, they see it as blue. Regardless of whether or not it's in black and white, they associate a number with a color. And I was sort of fascinated by whether or not there was a commonality between synesthetes. Like, do all synesthetes see 1 as red, 2 as blue, 3 as green, or whatever? And that's not the case. Though they did say that the number 1 was most likely to be associated with red for synesthetes. And I thought that was interesting. But grapheme color synesthesia is where you see numbers inherently colored based on that. But it says, talking about the hearing color, that or colored hearing in 1812, but Gustav Fechner reported the first empirical survey of a colored letter photisms among 73 synesthetes in 1876, followed in the 1880s by Francis Galton. C.J. Jung refers to color hearing in his Symbolisms of Transformation in 1912, and research into synesthesia proceeded briskly in several countries, but due to difficulties in measuring subjective experiences and the rise of behaviorism, which made the study of any subjective experience taboo, synesthesia faded into scientific oblivion between 1930 and 1980. So, for that amount of time, was it 50 years, synesthesia wasn't really studied. But they studied it as early as 1812. And they studied 73 synesthetes. And I think that's fascinating. What do you guys think about this as far as, like, starting in the study starting in 1812 and trying to, like, prove that you weren't crazy, you were actually seeing this for reals?
I think it's interesting that it started that long ago.
Me too.
Sure, it's been with us since the dawn of evolution. And
this is not something I would have thought about. Like, I wouldn't just sit around thinking, like, I'm not saying people are faking, but if someone were to try to fake something, this is not one of those things that I would sit around and think of.
I think it's more interesting that we have evolved scientifically enough that science doesn't just dismiss this as someone's imagination and actually took the leap to study it, study the brain and how it works.
Right.
I follow the Smithsonian magazine because they share so many different things, and it's interesting that today, of all days, they shared an article. Here's why you may get chills that are multiplying when you hear your favorite song. What happens in the brain when music causes the chills? And so they gathered together, some subjects and hooked them together and found out why, I think the article said 1/3 to 1/2 of people in the world have this phenomenon. Yep. Somewhere between 1/2 to 2/3 of the population have this reaction, yet scientists long debated why. So they gathered up a bunch of people that claimed to have this experience, and they gathered a bunch of people that said they've never had this experience, and they hooked them up, played some music of all different types, and they discovered that when these people that get the chills from music, they're wired differently than other people. And it kind of supports the research that I did on our topic tonight. They found out that there are sensory connections between, let's see, let me find the place and I'll just read it. The people that heard it or got the chills had more nerve fiber connecting auditory cortex, the part of the brain that processes sound, to their anterior insular cortex, the region of the brain that involves the process of feelings. So I don't remember where the article was that I read about our topic tonight, but it basically said the same thing. That people that see these things and smell things when they see something, they have nerve fibers within their brain that connect parts of their brains together. And it all goes back to almost the same place, the process of feeling.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. It made me wonder if that's just something that's always been around, because we're talking about the 1800s, or is that something that has slowly evolved in the human brain?
I don't know.
Doesn't everybody get the chills from music?
No,
Really?
not everyone.
Really?
I
Yeah.
do a lot.
And
All the time.
and Sushi, I'm surprised with you being dead inside and all that you feel anything at all.
I
Honestly,
seem to have a very thick neurological cortex. Lots
There
of
you
fibers going on.
who knew? Who knew? But it did make me wonder if people who can see spirits were some form of synesthete.
Ah.
Do they
Yeah,
have
that's
like
good.
certain neurological pathways that other people don't, or connections between pathways that other people don't, that allow them to see these things that other people can't see?
Now, that would be interesting. There would be a scientific way to see if someone was psychic or not.
And I've always wondered if you hook, and I'm sure someone's done this somewhere, and I meant to look it up, and I got sidetracked because I was looking up this topic. But I've wondered if they've done a study on psychics or mediums or whatever you want to call them that dead inside. That's right, Tater. Thank you.
Did you make
That's Sushi's shirt right there.
I want to save that image. That's awesome.
But I forgot what I was saying. What was I
Sorry,
talking about?
got distracted
okay.
by silliness in the chat room.
You were saying if psychics have been studied to see what
Oh.
their brains do.
Right, and I would like to see a study to see, like, people who see and hear spirits, what parts of their brain are active during that period. Is it something that's linked to imagination? Is it something that linked to cognitive skill? What part of the brain is actually active during a psychic's channeling or seeing or hearing a spirit of some sort? That would be a fascinating kind of scientific experiment to do, I think.
Okay, take this for what you will. As you were talking, I was thinking about how you would go about doing that, and somebody put an image in my head of the pituitary gland, or the region of the pituitary right between your eyes and your forehead,
Right.
which is supposed to be where your third eye is.
yeah. Interesting.
So I wonder if you did CT scans of those of us that can see ghosties to see if there's more activity in that region.
Oh, Spring, that is going to be my obnoxious lottery spending money. I will fund that research.
Cool. There you go.
We were talking before the show about if we had like $1 billion, what ridiculous thing would we spend it on? Like one ridiculous thing.
Yes,
You
I
gotta
would.
do
Fund,
at
I would
least
fund
one thing.
research. That's what I would do.
Actually,
I think that's cool.
I do too.
And I will buy my Bugatti and drive to wherever it is that research is happening.
My guinea pig.
But there are organizations out there for synesthetes, like the American Synesthesia Association, the UK Synesthesia Association, the Belgian Synesthesia Associations. They're not very original, are they? With their names.
But it almost sounds like anesthesia.
I know.
Would confuse them.
Yes, I would like you to put me to sleep. Sorry, sir, we see colors. Don't we all? I just saw black as you were talking. Please go away. But I wonder if a colorblind person would see colors like that. Like if they had synesthesia but they were colorblind, could they perceive?
Evil is somewhat colorblind. And so talking from the conversations I've had with him about what he sees and how he sees things, my guess would be there's no frame of reference.
True.
So it would be hard to say.
But there are two overall forms of synesthesia, and that is projective synesthesia and associative synesthesia. People who project will see actual colors, forms, or shapes when stimulated, as is commonly accepted as synesthesia. Associators will feel a very strong and involuntary connection between the stimulus and the sense that it triggers. For example, in the common form chromesthesia, sound to color, a projector may hear a trumpet and see an orange triangle in space, while an associator may hear a trumpet and think very strongly that it sounds orange. Now, I think that's interesting because I think that we as human beings already have associations with sounds and colors and stuff like that. So with the associator, it would be more difficult, or the associative synesthesia, it would be more difficult because someone would play a trumpet, you'd think, I'm thinking of the color orange. And your friends would be like, okay, freak.
I wonder if that's how the blues got their name.
Oh, that is very interesting.
You know, you sometimes associate colors with feelings. Yeah, got the blues, the green with jealousy, red with envy.
That's interesting. But I think that also shows our relationship and association with colors. That there isn't just a visual aspect to colors. There can also be an emotional one. Mm-hmm. And I think that's interesting in itself because as an empath, I have strong associations with colors anyway.
I mean, you could get into the whole feng shui thing too, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever colors you have in your house, depending on what you want the mood to be in your home.
Right.
Well, we have
a light blue bedroom because we wanted cool colors, you know, in the bedroom. I have a bright yellow kitchen because I want it to be a happy, fun place. You know, yellow makes me happy. So, I mean, bright lemon yellow, like really yellow, and with red trim, bright red trim.
Wow.
So yeah, it's obnoxiously bright, and I absolutely love it. It just you walk in, you just okay, time to cook. Woo.
There you go.
Yeah, so
it doesn't.
Did they say that scent is one of the strongest senses that we have, and that holds the deepest memories or the most long-lasting memories?
Yes,
sure.
And that is true because I don't have a lot of sense of smell because I've had so many sinus surgeries from the time I was like 4 years old until 20-something. I've lost a lot of my sense of taste and smell. But when I can kind of smell things, and I smell things from my past, it brings back so many emotions that are so strong and overwhelming that it's crazy. Mm-hmm. But it takes me back to that moment that I smelled it, or I was thinking about it while I was smelling it. And it's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Every time I smell roses, I think of my mom's mom, who I was closer with than anybody else of my, older relatives. Her name was Rose. So when I smell roses, I think of her.
And see, I think of my dad's mom because she liked the scent of roses and would have even like the fake scent of roses around.
Well, when I'm sitting around the house and smell roses and there's no reason for there to be a rose smell in the house, then I know she's visiting. And when I'm out, you have to pass my rose bushes to get to the door, to get into the house. So in the summertime, it makes me feel like she's always here.
Yeah. That's kind of cool.
So I think, yeah.
So it says on here, synesthesia can occur between nearly any two senses or perceptual modes. And at least one synesthete, Solomon Shereshevsky, experienced synesthesia that linked all 5 senses.
Oh dear.
Can you imagine? I mean, that would... You might pass out, you know.
As long as he's not smelling bad stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's...
How about your sensory overload there, man?
But that's insane. Could you imagine, like, you see ice cream and all of a sudden you start seeing purple triangles and you taste tacos and you hear, like, static in the back? I don't know. It's just... It would be overwhelming. You'd be like, put it away. It'd be like your kryptonite or something. But there are different types of synesthesia, and I wanted to go over some of these, but grapheme color synesthesia is one of the most common forms. Individual letters of the alphabet and numbers collectively referred as graphemes are shaded or tinged with a color. While different individuals usually do not report the same colors for all letters and numbers, studies with large numbers of synesthetes find some commonalities across letters. A is likely to be red. And I think that's fascinating. And I wonder why. To me, I think it would be more interesting if, like, everyone saw A is red. Because to me, that would mean there was something higher out there that some of us are missing. Mm-hmm. You know, but I don't know. I think it's interesting.
You know, it reminds me a little bit of how you can use. Damn it, the word just went out of my head. Association something or something association. You know, like if somebody says a word, what's the first thing you think of?
Right.
Yeah, word association.
Word association.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah. Right.
You know, when I'm trying to, back in the day when I did website design, I was asking somebody, you know, what colors they wanted their website to be, and they said, I don't know. And I said, okay, tell me the first color that pops into your mind when I say this. Are you ready? And then I'll say whatever it is that's associated with the subject matter of their website, and they tell me a color. And that's how I would build people's, you know, the brand of the website.
Oh, that's cool.
So when I'm trying to do a post for my blog today or any day, and I'm trying to think of a picture that would go with the subject, I used to be able to ask, you know, the Evely person in here. I'd ask Evil, what's the first thing you think of when I say this? And then I'll tell him what the topic is, and then he'll tell me what he sees.
Cool.
And if I don't use it, which most of the time I usually did, but if I didn't use it, then, you know, I'd go to use that as inspiration for what I think. So I think, you know, to some degree, I wonder how much the people that do this, how they get their association for things. I mean, like, for instance, if I said the word see and you have this ability, would you see something that wasn't familiar to you, or would it be something from a memory?
That's interesting. Because when you said sea, I think of green or blue because the ocean is green or blue.
And I was thinking of the letter C.
Right. But
So yeah.
But I made a different association, and it was from experience, not from, like, synesthesia.
Right.
But chromesthesia is the association of sounds with colors. For some everyday sounds such as doorbells opening... Oh, I'm sorry. For some sounds such as doors opening, cars honking, or people talking can trigger seeing colors. For others, colors are triggered when musical notes and or keys are being played. And I think this is interesting right here. People with synesthesia related to music may also have perfect pitch because their ability to see, hear colors aids them in identifying notes or keys.
That's interesting.
It is interesting because it definitely shows the connection between the two. You know,
Mm-hmm.
It's just fascinating. But according to Richard Sidewick, chromesthesia is something like fireworks, voice, music, and assorted environmental sounds such as clattering dishes or dog barks, trigger color, and firework shapes. I'm afraid to
Dog
ask.
what?
Dog barks.
Barks.
It sounded like you said fart.
No. Dog barks. Retards. Dog farts. Now I lost my place. Trigger color fireworks shapes that arise, move around, and then fade when the sound ends. It could be dog farts too, I suppose. Sound often changes the perceived hue, brightness, scintillation, and directional movement. So I think that's interesting.
That's funny.
Tell Sushi to stop laughing.
Stop.
Oh, dear God. And scene.
Oh,
We're
Oh,
done.
my.
deep breath.
But one thing that I think is interesting here is that individuals rarely agree on what color a given sound is. B flat might be orange for one person and blue for another. And dog farts are definitely different colors for different people.
It's the most colorful of all.
But like
Oh.
whereas letters, like A was more likely to be read, with musical notes they're completely different. So maybe it's just the different parts of the brain that are stimulated during all this. But what do you guys think? Would you want to be a synesthete? Would you want to be able to see these colors? And
I think they would get
Could you
overwhelming and
play?
distracting.
Could you play music in the car? You know, do they? I would assume that you'd have to drive in silence.
Well, you know, I'm thinking it might be like your other senses. We learn how to use them.
tune things out.
So, like, they talk about, you know, when babies are little and they're learning to hear, you have to learn how to hear the person that you're talking to and tune out all the extraneous noise, especially if you're in a crowd. You know, so if you can do that with one sense, you probably can do that with everything.
And
to some extent.
And if you were born with it, you're used to it. It's
Right.
not unnatural for you. Whereas if it happened to us, like right now, it would probably be very distracting. But with a synesthete that grew up this way, it's normal for them, and they can tune it out.
Yeah, and it's funny. How do you know that it's not normal? Like, I just discovered that not everybody gets chills from music, but because of my experience and, you know, and maybe the people I hang out with, they get chills too. And I just thought everybody. And so you think a kid, and it's like with children that are colorblind, you know, why they test so early now, you know, to identify, because they don't know that's not how everybody sees the world. You know? And you'd have to identify these things, right? So,
well, you know, when I was little and I could see ghosts, and my mom would talk to me about who I'm talking to, I thought everybody could do it until I was like 13 or 14 years old, and I realized very few people can do it. And then when I discovered that, I felt out of place, you know, outside everybody else. It was, what's the word? It was an uncomfortable feeling. You know, took quite a while for me to get over that. And, you know, I stopped talking to people about it for a long time, except for my mom. She's the only one that really accepted it and let me talk about it. And we, you know, we would drive down to Tennessee to see family. It was an 8-hour drive for us. And on our way, you know, I would say somebody sitting in the back seat, and we'd talk about whoever's going on a ride with us. That's the only time I would do it for a long time.
Just out of curiosity, did she ever have you tested for insanity?
You know, that's probably a good question. No.
Actually, it's well, that's not what I wanted. Actually, it was from what is the name of the show with Sheldon?
Big Bang.
Big Bang Theory, where he says, "I'm not crazy. My mother had me tested." And he says that all the time. That's what it made me think of.
If it's any help, my mom was a registered nurse.
Well,
So maybe she saw something that made her comfortable with the whole thing. Her first her internship when she was a nurse was in pediatric ER. I can't imagine doing that job.
yeah.
But anyway, the research I was doing for our topic tonight, see, I'm avoiding saying the word because I can't say it. So in my research, I was looking for other physical senses that these people have. Like, for instance, when they see the letter A and they see orange, does anything else happen physically to them? Like, do they get the chills? And I couldn't find anything in what I was looking at.
Right. I don't know. I think it's usually with most people, it's just between like two senses, like vision and hearing, or vision and taste. I don't think it's like a full all over body experience like that.
See, I was thinking, if you think about all five senses, not including the sixth sense, think
Right.
about all five senses. Touch is one of those. How come nobody feels like they're being touched?
I'm getting to that.
Okay.
But
You go, boy.
yeah, but there is. I'm going to go through a couple of these really quickly just to kind of get to what you said. But there's spatial sequence synesthesia. Those with SSS tend to see numerical sequences as points in space. For instance, the number 1 might be further away and the number 2 might be closer, and they have
Oh,
superior
wow.
memories.
Like
Number
looking at numbers in 3D.
Oh, can you imagine trying to look at like a number that's really, really far away? You're like, I'm sorry, teacher, I can't see that. But number form is a mental map of numbers that automatically and involuntarily appears whenever someone who experiences number forms thinks of numbers. So I guess they can see it. Auditory tactile synesthesia. Certain sounds can induce sensations in parts of the body. For example, someone with auditory tactile synesthesia may experience that hearing a specific word feels like a touch in one specific part of the body, or may experience that certain sounds can create a sensation in the skin without being touched. And it's one of the least common forms of synesthesia, but I think that's interesting. Ordinal linguistics personification, try saying that fast, OLP, is a form of synesthesia in which ordered sequences such as ordinal numbers, weekday names, months, and alphabetical letters are associated with personalities and or genders. For example, the number 2 might be a young boy with a short temper, or the letter G might be a busy mother with a kind face. Now, I wonder there if they're not associating that with someone they know that their name begins with that.
Yeah.
So that would be a little interesting. But misophonia is a neurological disorder in which negative experiences, anger, fright, hatred, disgust, are triggered by specific sounds. Richard Sidewick suggests that misophonia is related to or perhaps a variety of synesthesia, and they compared it to terms of connectivity between different brain regions as well as specific symptoms. But then again, if I say the word blue and I slap you a couple of times, you're kind of always going to associate blue with being slapped in the face. Now, here's the one I wanted to get to. It's called mirror touch synesthesia. This is a rare form of synesthesia where individuals feel the same sensations that another person feels, such as touch. For instance, when such a synesthete observes someone being tapped on their shoulder, the synesthete involuntarily feels a tap on their own shoulder as well. And people with this type tend to have higher empathy levels compared to the general population.
And see, that happens to me.
Really?
If I'm tuned in, when you see ghosties all the time, you kind of, it's like hearing people in a crowd. You learn how to turn it off and turn it on, otherwise you go nuts. So if I'm turned on for some reason,
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm in tune with that sense, and I've opened up to see ghosts or energy, usually that would happen if I was in a meeting at work. I could turn on to see the energy that was in the room, who was really mad, who was being deceitful, stuff like that. And somebody touches somebody on the shoulder, I would feel them getting touched.
That's interesting.
See, I always associated that with just being an empath.
As an empath, I've never experienced that, I don't think. I can feel and sense and read people's emotions, but if I'm reading someone, I've never felt like I was being touched when someone else is being touched. But
then that would beg the question, was somebody being touched when you were reading them?
Right. But I don't know.
You probably have to think really hard to see if that's happened. Or specifically, try an experiment and see what happens.
Yeah, but then if I put it in my head, who knows what I'll feel,
That's true, too.
You have to be careful with stuff like that. But that's what I wanted to get to with that, because you were talking about it. But there's also lexical gustatory synesthesia, another rare form of synesthesia where certain tastes are experienced when hearing words. For example, the word basketball might taste like waffles. The documentary... Wait.
I don't know why that's funny.
You want to go play basketball? Waffles. The documentary Derek Tastes of Earwax gets its name from this phenomenon, in reference to pub owner James Wanerton, who experiences this particular sensation whenever he hears the name spoken. Ooh.
Ooh. That reminds me of the Harry Potter movie. They would have that candy that tasted like earwax.
Yeah,
every flavor jelly beans.
Right.
Yeah.
Bertie Bott's or whatever it was.
Yeah.
There's
alas, earwax.
Yeah. And then there's spatiotemporal synesthesia, in the manner of number from synesthesia. This spatiotemporal synesthesia is a mental map of days, weeks, and or months of the year. Individuals presenting this synesthesia type declare that they can see the time, for example, in the form of a ribbon, ring, or circle. According to certain researchers, those individuals possess peculiar synaptic connections in their brain, allowing them to perceive time as a spatial construct. I wonder if it's all wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey type of stuff.
Wimey stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if, since we know that science doesn't have a good definition of time, which they admit to, I wonder if these people are seeing time as it really is. Wouldn't that be freaky?
That would be interesting.
That would be.
But those are the kind of major and minor ones. And I don't know. This is something that I just never would have thought about, connecting things in my head. I just never would have thought of this. Had you guys heard about this before we did this show?
Yeah,
if it did,
NPR
if I did associate it with anything.
NPR did a piece on it that I had heard about a man who saw colors, and he was a composer. And he would compose. It aided him in his compositions because he would use the colors. If it made a nice color pattern, whatever notes he was playing, then that was good. And yeah.
What would be cool?
I hadn't heard about it before.
What?
I've always thought it would be amazingly. I don't know what the word would be, but I've always wanted science to develop something that could read your brain waves and take the picture you've got in your head and print it out, even if it's just on the screen.
Right.
I have imagined some absolutely gorgeous art in my head, but when I try to put them down on paper, frankly, I fuck them up.
Yeah.
It just doesn't translate.
What word association do you have with that?
I'm just not a good enough artist.
What color do you see when Spring says the F word?
I see an explicit tag going up.
There you go.
Yeah, why bother? But
so if you think about somebody that is a composer that sees the color in music, imagine the kind of picture you could create from what they see to share that image along with the music they're creating. I think that would be phenomenal.
It would be. Have you ever seen Heroes, the TV show Heroes?
Yeah.
There was a deaf girl on the show that one of her abilities that she got was to see sound as color. And when she would play the piano and you would see this color just kind of rise up and flow through the air, and she would sit there and watch it as she played. And since she couldn't really hear it, she would watch the color vibrations and stuff. And I wonder if they got that idea from synesthesia.
Yeah. Probably.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Now, to my knowledge, I've never known anyone with synesthesia.
No, I don't know anybody.
But somebody on
it.
Yeah.
somebody on Facebook had said they knew someone that had it, and I think that's fascinating. But I think it's one of those things that you wouldn't know that you had it and no one else did until you started talking about it one day, like Spring, like you with the ghosties. You start saying, "Oh, look at the colors of that." Somebody goes, "What are you talking about?" And then you realize not everyone could do it. So,
well, it makes me wonder, when I was reading the article about people getting chills from music, I associated that with something I'm familiar with because I get chills when I hear certain things. But when I had begun my study under a shaman that I know, his name is Roger. Roger told me that when you feel chills or goosebumps especially, it means that something has transpired at that moment in time in your life that has released energy from a folder in your Akashic records.
huh?
And either that energy has been released from the folder so it can aid in your mission that you've chosen to work on in this lifetime. It released energy so that you know that you're at a moment in time where a lesson that you're supposed to learn is beginning, or that you have put things together and you've learned that lesson. Or it could also be the release of karmic energy that you need to repay to somebody or accept their payment to you.
Interesting.
Accept their payment to you. Yeah.
That's kind of cool, but we need to finish up with this topic so we can move on.
So it makes me wonder if some of these things that these people can do, if it is an evolution of the brain, is it the way the human brain is making connections so that these people are becoming more spiritual entities because they can see what's really there through the energy, and it's more of a spiritual evolution that the rest of us haven't caught up with.
That's interesting, and I would like to know, study-wise, if synesthetes are synesthetes. I'm not sure which way. I don't know. Whatever. I wonder if they are more prevalent now, percentage-wise, or the same as they've always been. And that would be an interesting study to find out. That might answer part of your question about spirituality. Yeah. So, final thoughts on this, because we need to move on to truth or tale. But
or y'all don't pass out. But I find nothing to disagree with here.
My God.
I believe
check hell. Is it
every word.
Over?
Probably. Well, it's scientifically been proven, so of course you believe every
word.
I believe.
Wonder how many synesthetes have been called liars because people that couldn't comprehend what they were experiencing and thought they were making it up for attention. But I would like to experience.
No man.
No man.
No man.
I would like to experience the color and sound. Hearing music and seeing colors go along with it, I think that would be amazingly awesome. It would be so much like magic.
Yeah. Like,
I think my biggest
evil mention, all you have to do is drop a little acid and you'll experience that.
I think my biggest thing that I get out of this is that science has finally evolved enough in itself to be able to study this instead of just dismiss it as, an emotional breakdown or some kind of psychological issue.
Right. They haven't trivialized it in an individual. They've studied it. And I think that's interesting. I think that's cool.
I think that's my biggest takeaway is that.
Yeah, and that's awesome. All right, so we are going to move on to Truth or Tale. If you're not familiar with this game, it's basically where I have 3 stories I'm going to read, and you have to decide if it's crazy enough to be true or just so stupid that I made it up, and honestly, sometimes you just can't tell the difference.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. So number 1, a juror in Canada was excused from trial after a visit from the victim's ghost. Truth or Tale? A juror in Canada was excused from trial after a visit from the victim's ghost. Truth or Tale?
Yes.
I'm going to say true.
Did you guys hear that?
If a juror came in and said I was visited by the victim's ghost, you're dismissed. Thank you.
I'm going to have to remember that one.
Did you guys hear that when I
I
asked
have
the
jury
question?
duty tomorrow. Oh my God.
Do you really? Well,
There's my excuse.
all right.
Okay, I didn't hear that. What did you hear?
When I asked that question, I heard a voice say true before you guys started talking.
Ruh-roh.
I heard it go, true. I'm going to go back and listen to see if we got an EVP on the show.
Excellent.
That would be awesome. But then you got to wonder, did it come from over here or one of your houses? All right, so
Nobody's in the room with me.
yeah, that doesn't mean it's not an EVP, Sushi.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah. All right. So that is the truth.
Yeah, I figured.
The paranormal encounter left the juror unable to proceed with the trial. In a letter sent to Justice Glenn Pullman of the Court of Queen's Bench, the unnamed juror asked to be dismissed from the Lucas Stracer Hurd homicide trial because she claimed that the victim's ghost had appeared to her with information that she believed would compromise her neutrality. I have a gift of being an intuitive and a medium, she wrote. I can describe it as the ability to see, hear, feel, sense those that have died or whom are about to be born. That's interesting. Last night, the deceased presented himself to me and made me feel what he went through as he was being killed, the intensity of his injuries, and the location of his wounds. In the letter, she went on to explain that she was not asking the judge to believe in the paranormal, but had felt it necessary to express how this experience had affected her mentally and physically. It was and never has been my intention to retract my ability to fulfill the juror role or come into court with the bias, but at this point I feel I can no longer act as a member of this jury fairly, she wrote. Following a counsel consultation, Pullman agreed and opted to excuse her from jury duty. Probably.
I wonder if her information was accurate that she gave
that would be interesting
about the victim.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah. How come nobody asked that question?
They probably did. It's just not in that article. All right. So number 2. In Africa, the Muppet Show is shunned due to the number of possessions that have taken place during its broadcast. Truth or Tale? In Africa, the Muppet Show is shunned due to the number of possessions that have taken place during its broadcast. Truth or Tale?
God, my gut tells me I want
hard.
to say true. But I think this is stupid, so I want to say false. I'm going to go with true just because.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same way there, Spring. I'm going to go true also.
Okay. That is a tale. I made it up.
It was a good tale.
Yeah, I try to come up with something interesting when I do tales.
And that was a good one.
All right, this is a long one, so you just have to listen along. While watching The Conjuring 2, a man in India had a heart attack and died. While being transported for a post-mortem evaluation, both the body and the driver disappeared mysteriously without a trace. Truth or Tale? While watching The Conjuring 2, a man in India had a heart attack and died. While being transported for a post-mortem evaluation, both the body and the driver disappeared mysteriously without a trace. Truth or Tale? Evil said Africa is the new China.
You know, in India, they still believe that witchcraft is evil, and they've killed people for being a witch. I'm going to say true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going true also.
That is the truth.
Wow.
Man dies, vanishes during The Conjuring 2. The body of a 65-year-old man from India who died while watching the movie has since gone missing. The peculiar series of events which occurred at the... Okay, I'm going to butcher these names because there are like 4 of them that are huge. At the Sri Balasubramaniar Cinema in Tiruvannamalai began when the man started to complain of chest pains. Near to the end of screening of the popular James Wan horror sequel, The Conjuring 2, the man was rushed to old government hospital where he was pronounced dead, but when his body was later sent for a post-mortem at Tiruvannamalai Government Medical College Hospital, both it and the driver responsible for making it there mysteriously disappeared without a trace. It's the latest in a series of peculiar incidents surrounding the movie, which have included a woman being possessed in the cinema and a man who returned to his hotel room after watching the film, only to find that a mysterious cross had appeared on the bathroom mirror. While some social media users have suggested that these events could be the result of a curse in relation to the movie, it is more likely that they are either unrelated incidents or some sort of promotional exercise designed to encourage more people to go see it. That would be my guess right there, is that...
Follow the money.
Yeah, that it's... They either had a wreck and nobody's found the vehicle yet, or... Now, I would be interesting. It says that the body and the driver disappeared. Did the vehicle disappear as
Where's the
well?
vehicle?
Or
Yeah.
was it found, sitting somewhere? But I would almost say it might be a promotional thing, but who knows? I mean, we've heard of weirder things happening, so you never know with stuff like that. But unfortunately, that is going to wrap it up for this episode of the Enigma Project. Thank you to everyone who listens. We appreciate you guys in the chat room. You guys are awesome. Join us next Monday when our topic is going to be astral projection, out of body, and near-death experiences, and then no show the Monday after that. We'll have a week off. That'll be nice. But we will see you all next Monday. Have a great Monday and a great rest of the week. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Night.